Hey guys, welcome back to labor laws lecture series. And as you guys are aware, we are discussing about labor laws paper 1 of KSLU LLB syllabus, and we are now discussing about unit 4, and more focus is on Employees Compensation Act of 1923. Okay, this is the fourth video in the series of Employees Compensation Act. In the first video we discussed social security and the influence of ILO on social security laws, and then finally a constitutional mandate in India. Okay, and the second video we discussed overview of the Employee Compensation Act, and then in the third video we discussed key definitions. One is employee and the second one is a dependent. In this particular video, in the fourth video, we are going to discuss the definition of an employer, and then partial disablement, and then total disablement. These three are very critical definitions with respect to Employee Compensation Act of 1923. Let's look into a definition of an employer first, and then we will discuss disablement. Okay, here is a definition given in Employee Compensation Act of 1923 and in section 21E. So section 21E talks about who is employer. Okay, generally we know who is employer. Employer is someone who gives a job opportunity, right? He gives a job opportunity to others, and this other person is termed as employee. It is a generic definition, it is not a statutory definition, and this person, employee, works as per the directions given by employer, and there will be an agreement between these two. There will be an agreement. Okay, this is all about generic definition of an employer, or a generic meaning of an employer. But according to the act, this kind of employer includes anybody of a person's, whether incorporated or not. So persons means can be a individual, partnership, company, whatever, any company, partnership, whatever, whoever it is, whether it is incorporated or not, whether it is a registered or not, whether it is a partnership firm registered or not, or a group of individuals who are hiring people but not registered, that is also fine. Whether registered is also fine. So employer includes any person, whether incorporated or not. And then the managing agent of an employer. Suppose if a person E is here, employer, he is in Bombay and he wants to employ few people in Bangalore. Okay, he cannot come to Bangalore and do this work, right? Instead of he coming to Bangalore, he can appoint one agent or representative, or a agent, and this agent will appoint people, or the workers will work under this particular agent. So the workers will be here and they work under this agent. In this case also, he will be treated as an employer, not this agent. Okay, for these workers the employer is he is a principal employer and they are a subsequent employer. So from a law perspective, from this act perspective, employer includes this also. Okay, anybody of a person's, whether incorporated or not, and any managing agent of an employer, and the legal representative of a deceased employer. If employer dies in between, right, if there is some case is going, and then the legal representative of this will be considered as an employer. Okay, legal representative, if it is an individual person who is running a business, then his son or wife or a daughter, whoever is a legal representative, they will be held responsible and they will be considered as an employer. And in case of a corporate, the new management, whoever is there, that they will be considered as an employer. Okay, so employer includes a legal representative of a deceased employer. Okay, legal representative of a deceased employer. These 3 points are very simple and straightforward. Employer includes persons, whether incorporated or not, or a managing agents of an employer, or the representative of a deceased employer. Okay, here we have a definition given in the act for the managing agent. Managing agent means any person appointed or acting as a representative of another person for the purpose of carrying on such other person's trade or business but does not include an individual, manager, subordinate, or so agent is something who is acts as a representative but not an employee. That's what this definition of 2F says. So these 3 points are clear now. I hope you guys have understood what these 3 points are. Now the fourth point, okay, when this is very tricky here, when the service of a employee are temporarily lent or let on hire to another person by the person with whom the employee has entered into a contract of the service, means such other person while the employee is working for him. Say for example, we have a employer here, Mr. A. He appoints X as his employee, so he is a employer and then he is a employee here, correct? But Mr. A rent this particular X to another employer B. Okay, he is another employer here. B is another employer. X was appointed by A, but then he lent it or rent it to Mr. B. So X is starting working with now Mr. B. Okay, so though he has joined as an employee here, but he was lented it to Mr. B, and now he is having an agreement with Mr. B. So in that case, who is the employer for him? Okay, this is a very tricky condition here. The A who hired Mr. X as an employee and then lent it to Mr. B. Okay, so X is now working with Mr. B and X is having complete agreement with Mr. B now. Okay, in this case it is a very tricky case and we have a case studies for this. In this particular case, Mr. B is a employer here because all the directions, everything was being given by Mr. B. So Mr. B is a responsible employer here. Okay, and there is another person called an independent contractor, which we discussed in previous video. If the entire work of B is given to A and A is executing that work, then A was responsible for the acts of a Mr. X. But here X is directly working with Mr. B. That's why Mr. B will be treated as an employer. Okay, that's what here means, such other person while the employee is working for him. So this person will be called as an employer, the other person Mr. B. So this is about the definition of employer. Let's recap in summary. I don't explain the concepts. Employer includes anybody of person whether incorporated or not, and its managing agent and the legal representative of a deceased employer. And the third one, if the employee is let out to other person, and for that period the other person will be treated as an employer. These are the 4 important points about the definition of employer. Let's move to a important topic now. Another important topic, we say, right, the employer or a businessman, one is he will give a employment. When he gives a employment, he will become employee, right? Otherwise he can take a contract resource from where? Some third party. Here the relationship is very similar like an employee only, because they take a resource from this third party, but this third party resource works as per the direction of a businessman or a employer, correct? So employee also works as per this direction and this also does it for the same thing. But in some cases employer will give a direct contract to someone. This is for a contract for service. This is called as contract for service. In this case, employer says he will call a contractor Mr. Z. Employer directly enters contract with Mr. Z and asks him to build house, to build factory, Okay, that's it. So employer gives a complete contract of 10 crores and asks Jet to build a factory and hand it over back to me, hand it over back to Mr. Manufacturer or a businessman. So this is a complete independent contract. So where employer will not give any directions, he gives only a requirement. This is what we need from a factory side. The factory should be of this size and it should have these multiple rooms and other thing. He gives only a requirement. And entire execution of the work is with Mr. Jed. So this is called as a contract for services. In the case of contract for services, what is to be done is given by employer. How to do it? How to do it? Employer will not say anything here. Obligation to obey, contractor need not to obey any orders of the employer here, and the labors also, employer will not give any labors. Okay, everything will be taken care by this contractor. So this is called as a contract for services mandate. So contract for services where employer gives only his directions and the rest all will be done by a contractor. In this case, employer is not responsible for any deaths or any injuries happens in the construction of this building. Employer is not responsible and this particular contractor is responsible for everything, because all the resources are working for him, all the peoples are working for him, and employee is not asking them to do it in a particular way. So all the decisions are by this contractor. Okay, so in this case, employer is not responsible, the contractor will be treated as an employer and he is responsible for the compensation. I hope guys you are clear with the term of contract for service. And then there is another concept called contract of service. This is nothing but taking some resources. I take some resources, I give my direction, and the resource has to obey my order, and they are like my personal labor. In this case, the third party is not responsible, the employer is responsible. Okay? Contract of service is different and a contract for service is different. Contract for service, it is contractor's responsibility. Contract of service, it is employer's responsibility. Okay, here employer is responsible and here contractor is responsible. I think you people have like you understood the entire concept of employer and when contractor is responsible and when employer is responsible. Uh, okay, let's look into few key cases with respect to a definition of an employer. The first one is here when the government department PWD hired out few resources or lorries and drivers to some other party. Okay, here we have a government office which is PWD here, and they hired assume 10 drivers and then they have 10 lorries. What they do is they give all the 10 lorries and 10 drivers to another person, another party, and all these 10 drivers and lorry, right, 10 drivers start working for him and under the direction of this third party. Okay, who is like a who is like an employer for them now. So as we discussed in the definition, if someone hires and let it out to other party, then the other party will be considered as an employer, not this as a original employer. Okay, so the employer here is party who takes the resources on hire. So this was held in the case of Krishna Iyer versus the superintending engineer PWD Madras. So though the hirer here, the employer is superintendent engineer PWD, but these drivers are working for some contractor, some other contractor. In that case, the contractor will be treated as an employer and not the PWD department. The second one, the state government executing work on behalf of the municipal corporation. Employee of a state government died while executing the work. Okay, this is the case of Municipal Corporation Almora versus Jaswant Singh. Look into a situation here. State government is working and here is a municipal corporation. Okay, so there is some work like a construction of a building. This is the work of a municipal corporation, but this municipal corporation asked or appointed state government to construct this work. Okay, to construct the building. So then state government started working on construction of a building. During this case, this work under construction, the employee of state government employee dies or suffers injury. Who is liable here? Who is the employer here? Whether municipal corporation or a state government. The decision is it is state government, because though the work is related to municipal corporation, the entire work is given to a state government, and state government is acting like a independent contractor, right? And this particular employee who suffered injury is working as per the direction of this particular state, not as per the municipal corporation. So in this case, the state government is held responsible, and they are be treated as an employer. This is the case municipal corporation versus Almora. So the municipal corporation was not employer and not responsible for paying a compensation. Okay. The owner of the boat hired it to another. One of the crew engaged by later died. Here is another case. One person who is having a boat. Say Mr. A. He is having a boat. He lent it. He rented the boat to B. So now B appoints few workers there, or crew members for that. Okay, they take a boat, and then the crew members work for Mr. B, and one of the crew member dies. In this case, who is the employer here? Not A, because A is just a owner of the boat, but B is the one who has taken the rent of the boat and then appointed the crew. So B is held responsible. Owner of the boat was not responsible and is not an employer, and only the later party has to pay the compensation for the widow, compensation to the widow. Okay. A person putting off a building takes workers from a contractor. One of the worker dies during that. This is a case of contract of service, not for service. This is a case of contract for service. This one, correct? The entire contract is given to state, so the state is responsible. This is a case, yes, Kalu and Sons versus OBB. This is a case of contract of service, where the builder takes a resources, only employees or a contract laborers, and then these laborers execute work as per the direction of the builder, not as per the director of their original employers or a principal main employer, right? So in this case, labor who is working under the direction of the builder, so the builder will be held responsible. Okay, in the case of S. Kalu and Sons versus OBB, it was held that person putting up building, which is nothing but a builder, was responsible to pay compensation. So I hope you guys are clear with the definition of employer now. With this brief discussion, we will move to next topic. Okay, so the new another point which we are going to discuss in this video is a disablement. Disablement is a very important definition, because entire compensation payable to employee is dependent on the disablement. Okay, what is disablement? Disablement means nothing but injury which results in reduction in earning powers. Okay, injury which happens in accident. Okay, in accidental injury, if that injury reduces the earning power of a person. If a carpenter is working and is one of the left hand goes, like left hand is removed, amputated or surgically removed, in that case he will not be able to work. So it reduces his earning power. If driver is working and his right leg got injured and then surgically removed or amputated, in that case he will not be able to work as a driver. Correct? So disablement is nothing but any injury which results in reduction in working earning capacity. Okay, earning capacity of a person or a earning power of a person. This kind of disablement, there are two types. One is partial disablement and the second one is total disablement. We will look into each of these points in detail in next videos. Partial disablement can be a partial disablement is defined in section 21G, and then total disablement is defined in section 21L. Partial disablement can be a temporary partial disablement or a permanent partial disablement. Same way, total disablement can also be a temporary or permanent. Okay. Okay, let's look into the definition of partial disablement under section 21G. Partial disablement definition given in section 21G, it covers both the definition. One is for temporary nature and the second one is for permanent. Okay, so this definition talks about both temporary nature and definition for temporary nature and permanent nature. Partial disablement means where the disablement is of a temporary nature, such disablement as reduces the earning capacity. So if we have temporary and then we have permanent, right? Permanent partial disablement and then temporary partial disablement. Okay, in both the cases, the point is reduces earning capacity. So the injury reduces the earning capacity. Here also it reduces the earning capacity. Okay, reduces earning capacity. In both the cases, it reduces the earning capacity. But the only difference is this one reduce the job earning capacity of a job which he was doing at the time of accident. Doing at the time of accident. At the time of accident. Correct? This is what meant here, like he was engaged at the time of accident. So job which he was doing at the time of accident, it reduces the earning capacity of this job, but he can do any other job. He can do any other job. Then it will be called as temporary partial disablement. In case of permanent nature, it reduces the earning capacity of every employment. If you see the definition, right? It is not only the particular job he was doing, but also every other employment. He will not be able to perform other employments also. Okay, that is called as permanent partial disablement. So here is only a particular job which he was not able to do it, but here he is not able to, you will not be able to do any other jobs also. So it reduces the earning capacity in other jobs also. And there is a schedule 1, and schedule 1 lists out all the disablements. Okay, schedule 1 lists out all the disablement. The part 1 of the schedule, part 1 deals with the total disablement, which we will discuss later, and part 2, the important point to note here is part 2 deals with all permanent partial disablement. Okay, part 1 talks about total disablement and part 2 lists out permanent partial disablement, not a temporary partial disablement. It is not. Okay, so temporary partial disablement impacts only the particular job which employee was doing at the time of accident. Permanent partial disablement reduces the earning capacity on every job, and this list is given in part 2. Okay, let's look into a part 2. Okay, here is a part 2 of a schedule 1. part 2 of a schedule 1, which talks about permanent partial disablement. This is a list of injuries which will be treated as a permanent partial disablement. There are 4 parts, like here we are seeing first part here, amputation cases, upper limbs, which is like related to either of the arm, hand side, and then the lower part which is related to a leg. Okay, any damages happens to a upper part of a limb, like hand, fingers and everything, and here a lower part of the limb which is nothing but a leg. So these are the injuries which are considered as a permanent partial disablement with respect to upper limbs. And then here are the list which are considered as permanent partial disablement with respect to a leg. Okay, how to read this table? Here is an injury and here is a marks. At the end, whatever you are seeing, right, this is a marks. This marks is nothing but percentage of reduction in earning capacity. If there is any problem with the shoulder joint, then the reduction capacity is 90%. Okay, the earning capacity, the reduction in earning capacity is 90%. The same way, if there is a loss of thumb, then 30%. It is a reduction in earning capacity. Okay, so same way, there is a amputation of a hip. If there is a problem with the hip, then the earning capacity will be reduced by 90%. Correct. If there is a problem with only in both the feet, then also it is 90%. If there is a loss of toes, then it is 30%. Like this, you have to read this particular table. It is a big list. There is a list related to amputation cases, upper limbs, and amputation cases, lower limbs. And don't forget, this is very important. This particular thing is needed. The scores which they have given, because that will be used for calculating a compensation. Okay, the percentage of reduction in the working capacity or earning capacity will be used in calculation of a compensation. Okay, this is the first list, amputation cases related to upper limb, and this is the second list, amputation cases related to lower limbs. And then we have other injuries. Other injuries may be a loss of one eye, and then without any complication, loss of vision in one eye but other eyes will remain same. So here is a marks for each of this. Okay, loss of partial vision, then it is a 10. And then there is maybe a fingers related, index finger loss. If it is a completely gone, then 14, only something 11, one flanks, then 9. Like this, for a middle fingers, the whole 12, and in case of a ring finger and a little finger, then it is a 7. With respect to toes, partially 3, the full then 14, and any any other toes, then it is 3, then 2 toes, then 5, 3 toes it is 6, then 4 toes it is 9. So there are, these all are the way they have scored each of the injury, and all these are, remember, these all are partial disablement with permanent in nature. These all are not temporary. The list given in part 2 of a schedule 1 are related to permanent partial disablement. Now let's look into a total disablement. Total disablement means such disablement, whether of a temporary or a permanent nature, as incapacitates, it incapacitates a employee for all works which he was capable of performing at the time of accident, resulting in such disablement. Okay, this includes it is a major injury where employee will not be able to perform any duty. It is not that reducing the earning capacity, it is all about person is not able to do any work. For example, person, if he loses both the hands, then he will not be able to do anything. right? If he lost one hand and one foot, then also he will not be able to do anything. The score for total disablement is always 100%. So you will not be able to perform any work. It is only 6 items in a part 1, but part 2 is a bigger one for permanent disablement. Double amputation through leg to thigh, or amputation through leg or thigh, or one side and loss of other foot. Okay, there is amputation on one thigh and then there is a loss of other foot, but at the same time loss of sight to both the eyes. Very severe facial disfigurement, absolute deafness. These are 6 categories which would be considered as total disablement. Okay, this is total disablement. You guys, so I hope you guys are clear with the definitions of partial disablement. Partial disablement impacts the earning capacity, it reduces the earning capacity, but total disablement makes person is incapable of performing any work. So few cases here. One is the first case is Pratap Narayan Singh versus Srinivas. In this case, it was a carpenter who suffered an injury resulted in an amputation of his left hand above the elbow. So if the entire left hand is removed from the above the elbow, carpenter will not be able to perform any work in future. So this was treated that total disablement. Okay, this was held that it is a total disablement. Poonam Bai K. Parmar versus GK Construction, where driver suffered a disability in a right hand finger and also right thigh, okay, in an accident. This is a case where driver if loses a right hand and then a right thigh, then he will not be able to perform driver job anywhere. So it is a total disablement. Mechanic suffered a compound fractures and unfit for mechanical job. So then this is also called as a total disablement. See, this is a total disablement case, but if employer gives him an alternate job, when a carpenter loses his right hand or a left hand, in this case, if employer gives an additional job of an office clerk, okay, office assistant, in this case, then it can be considered as a partial disablement. Okay, so if employer is not giving any work, then it will be a total disablement. If employer gives some other work, then it will be considered as a partial disablement. This was held in the case of GMGIP Rail versus Shankar, where employee is unfit for a particular job, but employer offers other job. In this case, employee can claim partial disablement. Okay, this is all about the cases with respect to a partial disablement and total disablement. That's it on the definition of an employer and disablement. If you have any queries about these two topics, please message in comment box. I request you to please subscribe this particular channel. Thank you.